Hi, this is a how to pass video for higher physical education. My name is Kelly Wilson and I am the principal teacher of health and wellbeing within Dunoon Grammar School. Throughout this video I'm going to give you an overview of the course structure and hopefully some tips and hints on how to support your child and help them achieve the best grade possible. I'm going to start with just explaining what the course consists of. The higher physical education course is made up of two main components. We have the performance component, which is worth 50%, and the written exam, which is also worth 50%. I'm going to start by going over what the exam consists of and what your child will be required to learn in order to be successful. The exam component assesses your child's theoretical knowledge and understanding of the course content. This will be a continuation of any prior knowledge of National 5, or if your child is sitting this as a crash hire, they will have a little bit more catching up to do. The course covers four main factors: the physical factor, mental, emotional and social, and it's equally weighted as opposed to the National 5, which only focused in on the two. So your child will need to learn the cycle of analysis for all four factors equally. And that's really important to stress, that there is complete equal weighting of knowledge on all four. The exam consists of three main sections. Section 1 is basically your child's general knowledge of the four factors. The pupils will be expected to have knowledge of how those factors impact on performance, how they gather data on those factors, the approaches and training methods they have used to improve their weakness, and the methods of monitoring and evaluating that have been used. Section 2 is more related to their training diaries that they will complete in class time. This will be on two different factors, but again, you won't know what factors that will be until you're in the exam, so you will need to have that knowledge across all four factors, and that's worth 6 to 10 marks. Section 3 is very different. If your child has previously sat National 5, they will not have experienced a question like this before. The scenario question could come in the form of a table, a text, an image, or a graph, and it looks at your pupil's ability to solve a performance problem or challenge. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about what the scenario question consists of. Like I mentioned in the previous slide, it could come in the form of a data collection table, a piece of writing, maybe an article from a newspaper. It could be a graph or a picture. And your child will be expected to interpret what they are seeing and come up with possible reasons for why that data has been produced or why that graph looks the way that it does. Okay, it does require a sound knowledge of all factors, which will have been taught earlier on in the course, and this question will not be tackled until much later in the year. But it is a question that a lot of our pupils do find quite difficult and might require a little bit of support when first being exposed to these questions. In order for you to further help your child with the exam element of the course, they need to understand the command words. Within PE and the higher course, the command words move along a continuum from simple to complex. As you move along the continuum, they'll be asked to use higher order thinking skills. So, for example, the identify question is the easiest question in the higher paper, and the evaluate question is the hardest. In terms of what these command words mean, identify is merely identifying something within the course. It may well be identify a method of training you use to improve the physical factor, and they could say plyometric training. One statement would be worth 1 mark, so there won't be a huge number of these questions in the exam, but they might have one or two. A describe question is asking the pupil to describe what they have seen or what they have done. They will need to be able to give details about what something looks like, how something was carried out, where it was carried out, and when it was carried out. And each statement is worth 1 mark. Again, quite a simple question, but they need to make sure that the descriptive points that they are using are very, very detailed. The third type of question would be an explain question. If your child is asked to explain, they would need to be able to give details about why something is the way it is, why have you used something, why a particular method or approach is appropriate, and why a factor impacts on performance. So they want to come up with the example and then give the impact of that example on them or potentially their team. The analyze question is a big jump. It's a lot more difficult. If you're asked to analyze, they would need to be able to look beyond the explanation and give another reason why. They want to break down that information and look into detail and look at potentially the benefits and the limitations of whatever method of data collection or training that they are using. And finally, an evaluate question is a question where they're asked to make a judgment and then provide evidence. If they're asked to evaluate, they would need to make that judgment and give the value of it when evaluating performance or the personal development plan. If appropriate, they will need to provide data to back up what they are saying. So if they suggest that their training has worked, they would need to back that up with tangible evidence, such as a data collection sheet. You as a parent or a guardian having an understanding of these command words would be really, really helpful when you are supporting them with homework tasks to make sure that they are answering the question in the way that it needs to be answered. A lot of our pupils lose easy measy marks when, for example, they describe a training method as opposed to explaining why it's useful. And they do know the answer for both, they've just misread that command word. What can you do to help your child? Homework is absolutely vital. Homework is given out once a week. Each question will be taught in class with the support of the teacher, and homework will be issued to reinforce this learning. And then the homework will be marked and feedback will be provided. Okay, and the pupils need to take on board that feedback and make any changes that are necessary, not just ignore that feedback and move on to the next question. The rate of the higher course is extremely fast. If your child is absent, it's important that you encourage them to log on to the Google Classroom and complete any missed work. The nature of the course is that once we have covered a lesson once, we will not go back to it until the very end of the year when we're doing some revision, because the course is so tight with content. And I'd also encourage your child to attend supported study when it is being offered, and encourage them to ask for help, whether that's during the lesson or whether that's any time during the week. If they have a homework question they don't understand, they can just come down to the department and they need to ask for that support. The second element of the course is the performance element of the course, which is worth 50% of the overall grade. This year, because of COVID restrictions, the SQA have still stated that it will only be assessed on one physical activity as opposed to two. This is an advantage for the pupils because they will only be assessed on their one best activity. That will be marked out of 30 and then doubled to 60 and then worked out as a percentage of 50. The criteria for the performance is very specific. We will be looking at their repertoire of skills. So what skills do they possess within that activity? So, for example, if they have picked basketball as their activity, are they demonstrating a range of shooting techniques such as a layup, a jump shot, and a set shot? Are they showing the ability to dribble right-handed, left-handed, both, changes of direction? Second, we will look at control and fluency. That's also with 7 marks. We will look at how they move around the court. Are they fluent? Are they making lots of mistakes? Do they lose control of the ball? That factors into the control and fluency. We will look at the decision making throughout the game. Are they making the correct decision in terms of passing the ball, dribbling the ball, what type of shot they use when they are trying to shoot? When we are looking at the next category, which is applying tactics. Does your child have an understanding of the positions within the game, the defensive roles and the attacking roles, or are they just merely going along with the game? The next category is the rules and regulations. This is worth 1 mark. Do they know the rules? Okay, or are they continuously breaking the rules? Do they understand etiquette? Shaking hands at the end of the game. So this is a mark that I would expect all pupils to gain, okay, by making sure that they know enough about their chosen activity before the assessment day. The last category is to do with controlling their emotions. This is making sure that the pupil doesn't get angry, maybe throw a racket, push another player, argue with the ref. So I would expect all pupils to achieve that last mark in that category. In terms of what you can do to help your child with the practical performance, as I said, it's with 50% of the child's overall mark. Therefore, it is vital that you encourage your child to practice the skills in their chosen activity. It is not just enough that they are just doing it in their PE lessons. They need to be doing this outside of school. We don't always have time to practice everyone's chosen activity as we have such a wide range of pupil choices. So extracurricular clubs and community clubs are vital. We only cover 4 activities on the high course, and it may not be one of the activities that your child has picked. So if they are a swimmer, a Highland dancer, a rugby player, or whatever that activity may be, they need to be practicing that activity regularly to improve their skill level. We will try and accommodate all pupils' activity choices, but there is sometimes that's just not possible. If your child has a slightly more unique activity, whether that is sailing or mountain biking, if we do not have the expertise within the school or the authority to mark that, then the SQA advice would be to ask the pupil to choose another activity. But we will always try and allow the pupil to do their best activity. Encourage your child also to look at the performance criteria. If they are aware of where the marks are coming from, then they will perform better. We will do this in class, but this can also be done at home. We don't want any pupils throwing away easy marks, for example, in badminton, by merely not knowing what the court markings are, or not knowing whether to move from the right to the left when serving. These are easy marks that your child shouldn't be losing. And finally, the performance assessment usually takes place around February time. So your child now has between now and February to try and improve their skill level. Final note on the performance is that your child will need to meet the higher criteria in the practical performance element of the course. If they do not meet the higher criteria, then they are not allowed to be presented at a higher level. So that is something that we will discuss with each pupil leading up to the February assessment. Finally, some helpful resources that you may find useful. Like I mentioned previously, all work is posted on Google Classroom. That's PowerPoints, booklets, any form of materials that we have used. Great for catching up and great for revision for any assessments that are coming up. There is also a BBC Bitesize higher revision site. Very, very useful. It's got questions and answers, so the pupils can look at what the questions are likely to be and what the sample answer is for that question. There are textbooks out there. We do have them in the department. Pupils are welcome to use them. They all are slightly different. If I was going to advise to buy any of them, the middle book there in purple, Need to Know, is very nicely set out. And it goes through the topics really easily. And the book to the right on the red is good in terms of providing sample answer to questions. So they've actually got answers to questions in the red book. So I'd probably advise those 2 books if you were thinking of purchasing a book. Supported study will be on offer, so just encouraging your child to attend. Easter Revision School and any other revision weekends is always on offer. And a great simple tool is to go onto the SQA website and look at past paper questions. There's nothing better than looking at real questions and getting used to the way the questions are worded, and then also looking at the marking schemes and seeing what the examiner is actually wanting you to include to gain the marks. So I hope this video has been helpful and has given you some insight into the course and given you some hints and tips to maybe support your child through this year. Thank you very much.